The Millionaire and the Black Beggar, a tale of two worlds. Samuel stared out from the window of his high-rise penthouse as the city pulsed below him. Towering lights stabbed into the night sky, neon signs flickering like restless fireflies. He had it all: money, power, influence, but inside, something was hollow. That ache, gnawing beneath the surface, made his million-dollar view feel like a cage. That night, he chose the most dazzling restaurant downtown. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen rain. Waiters polished silver until it gleamed, and every bite he took was rich. But his appetite wasn't for food. It was for something he couldn't name. Then, right outside the gilded doors, Samuel's world cracked. A man stood there, shoulders squared, skin worn yet proud. Marcus, a black man roughened by years on the street. He didn't ask for spare change. He didn't beg with bent head. Instead, he carried himself with a stubborn light that clashed against the grime on his coat. One sharp-eyed waiter stepped toward Marcus, flipping his nose like the man was nothing but a shadow in their polished kingdom. The whispers began, sharp, cruel, drowning out the city's hum. "Did you see him? Here? No place like this for him." Samuel's chest tightened. His hand trembled as the waiter's gaze flicked to him, urging silence, ordering disgrace. It was a moment frozen in time. Marcus, lifting his chin, eyes locked on the polished marble, unbroken. Suddenly, Samuel stood, brushing past shocked diners and curious stares. Without thinking, he held out his hand. "Join me," he said, voice rough with something raw and real. Marcus blinked, surprise crashing through years of silence. Then a slow nod. They sat together, two worlds colliding over silverware and faint jazz. Inside, Samuel fought a storm. His mind snapped back to his mother, Ruth, the steel-hearted business tycoon. Woman who built her empire on ruthless deals and secrets buried like bones. Ruth, who never talked about his father, who watched Samuel like a hawk, ready to pounce, ready to tear down anything that threatened their flawless facade. But Marcus, he looked deeper. He spoke softly, quietly unraveling stories Samuel never heard before. Of family ties tangled beneath layers of forgotten history. Of debts owed not to banks, but to betrayals buried deep in Samuel's bloodline. The restaurant buzzed around them, but for a moment it was silent. Samuel's world trembled. Marcus's voice broke through. "Are you truly willing to change everything you know for someone like me?" The question hung in the thick air, heavier than the richest wine, sharper than the tiniest shard of broken glass. Samuel's throat caught, his hands clenching. Outside, the city roaraba, una vez que el nuevo tiempo de hacer acabó de empezar. Hey, antes de continuar con esta historia tan condida, necesito darte una advertencia importante. Muchos suscriptores han reportado que YouTube se retiraron las suscripciones sin aviso. Una quick tour aclara a todos los que se suscribieron al canal. No quiero que estés aquí sin aviso. Drop a poderoso like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, y lo echen en comentarios. ¿Qué ciudad estás mirando? Me encanta conocer a cada persona más apasionante que es parte de la comunidad. Tu participación hace toda la diferencia. La pregunta colgaba en el aire gracias que el primer vino superior de Massapis de Broan. Samuel abrió la boca para responder. But before he could find the words, a soda crash, eco en el restaurante. Glass se chatea. The music stopped. Eyes darted toward the entrance where chaos erupted like a storm. A man, wild-eyed and frantic, broke through the doors, shouting something incomprehensible. His clothes were tattered, skin smeared with dirt. "Help! Help me!" he screamed, voice raw as nails on a chalkboard. Panic rippled through the crowd. Waiters froze. Silverware clattered to the ground. The man stumbled forward, reaching for something in his pocket. Samuel's heart raced. What was happening? Who was this guy? Then it happened. The man yanked out a piece of paper, shaking it in disbelief. "They're coming for me. You don't understand!" He turned, eyes wide, scanning the crowd for recognition. In that wild look, Samuel saw something familiar, something dark. The man's gaze fell on Samuel. "You're him! You're the one! I know you!" Samuel's gut churned. "What are you talking about?" But there was no time. The restaurant doors burst open again, and men in dark suits poured in, grim and purposeful, like wolves on a hunt. They moved swiftly, eyes scanning the diners until landing on Samuel, who shrank back in his seat. The wild man gasped, recognition dawning on his face. "They're after you!" he roared, desperation bleeding into his voice. "You don't know, do you? You're part of it!" A sharp silence fell, thick and suffocating. Samuel felt the walls closing in. The men in suits stepped closer, a sea of menace. One reached into his pocket, displaying a small, gleaming badge. "Samuel, we need to speak with you. Now." All the air rushed out of Samuel's lungs. He glanced at Marcus, who looked at him wide-eyed, caught in the storm. Outside, the city roared. But here, in this moment, time stalled. Samuel's mind raced. Was he in danger? What did this mean? "What do you want?" Samuel's voice rose, tremulous but forming. "Your mother, Ruth," the suit replied, voice low and chilling. "She has secrets, dangerous ones." The words struck Samuel like a slap to the face. "What secrets?" he wheezed, the knot in his throat tightening. "Secrets that can destroy everything you stand for," the man said, leaning closer, eyes gleaming with an unsettling mix of intent and urgency. "You have no idea what you've inherited." "Stop!" Samuel shouted, feeling the weight of his mother's empire bearing down on him. Anger flared inside him, a mix of fear and indignation. "You're mistaken. I won't!" But the man cut him off. "Your life is a lie. You have to face the truth, or they will come for all of us." The words hung there, heavy. Shadows crept in around them. The room felt like it had shrunk 100 sizes. Samuel's heart thudded painfully in his chest. Suddenly, there was a crash behind him, the sound of a chair falling as people rushed to escape. The wild-eyed man turned to Samuel. "Don't let them take you!" His eyes were pools of fear, desperation weaving a thread between them. "You have to choose." The ground beneath Samuel's feet felt unsteady. His world, so carefully crafted, was crumbling. And then, just as quickly, everything plunged into chaos. Samuel's throat caught. His hands clenched. Outside, the city roared, unaware a new kind of fight had just begun. But before he could respond, the room shifted. A loud bang split the air, jarring every soul within the restaurant. Glass shattering, plates clattering. Samuel's heart raced. The doors burst open, flying off their hinges. and two masked figures stormed in, faces hidden behind dark cloth. Panic rippled through the crowd, like a wave crashing onto a quiet beach. "Down! Everyone, down!" One of the figures shouted, waving a gun in the air, voice raw and frantic. Samuel's stomach plummeted. He instinctively ducked, pulling Marcus down with him. The world turned into chaos. People screamed, furniture toppled, and the crystal chandeliers trembled like rain is about to fall. Marcus's eyes were wide, scanning the room for a way out. "Stay low," he hissed, adrenaline pumping. "Get the money, now!" barked the second masked man, pointing toward the cashier at the far end. The fear on the cashier's face was palpable, a terror frozen in wide eyes. A plate crashed to the ground, and someone shouted. The air grew heavier with each heartbeat. Samuel's mind raced. He was suffocated by the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a robbery. It felt like his entire life was spilling out, unraveling before him. Then came the chilling sound of a gunshot. Thud. A body dropped. No, not here. Not now. It felt unreal. Time slowed as lights dimmed. The restaurant dimmed, and Samuel felt his breath hitch. It took a moment to register. The waiter who had looked down on Marcus lay lifeless, bleeding on the floor. Silence swept through the crowd, shock gripping every heart like frost. Marcus stiffened beside him, the heavy reality hanging thick like fog. "This is wrong! We need to move!" he said, voice shaking, eyes dark pools of gathering fear. Samuel barely heard him. His world spun, thoughts clouding with an urgency that propelled him to his feet. He didn't want to feel this. He didn't want to see the fear in Marcus's eyes mirrored on the faces around him. But then a voice cut through the tension. "Stop this!" A woman screamed from the back. It was Ruth, his mother, the steel-hearted businesswoman, charging in with reckless courage. "You don't need to do this!" Everyone turned. The masked men shifted their focus, eyes narrowing at the woman who dared to confront them. Strangers turned their gaze, murmurs rising like smoke. "Mom, no!" Samuel shouted, reaching for her, desperate. "Shut up!" one of the masked men yelled, pointing the gun at her. "Get out of here, or else!" Ruth stood tall, unbowed. "You think this is power? You're nothing but cowards." Her voice cut through the chaos, each word a strike aimed at the heart of the assailants. In that frozen moment, everything changed. "Wait!" Marcus's voice rang out, steadying the air. "They don't deserve this. Let's just talk it out." His calm was a stark contrast to the storm swirling in Samuel's chest. Suddenly, the first masked man gestured wildly, his finger tightening on the trigger. No! It was too late. The deafening crack of another gunshot rang out. Something broke within Samuel. His heart, his world, his entire perception of reality. He turned just in time to see Ruth collapsing, blood blooming across her crisp white blouse. It felt like the earth shifted beneath his feet. Hands trembling, Samuel looked at Marcus, and in that gaze, everything was unmade. Samuel's life, tangled with secrets and shadows, tipped into chaos. The ties of blood and betrayal manifested in that instant, blurring boundaries between mother and son, wealth and poverty. He couldn't breathe. Everything he thought he knew cracked open. The city continued to pulse outside, oblivious. The fight was just beginning. What did he really want? What was left to lose? And could he save them both? Samuel felt the ground under him crack and shatter. Ruth's body crumpled like a marionette with cut strings. Confusion wrestling with horror in Samuel's heart. He reached for her, a desperate instinct, his mind clouded with disbelief. She couldn't be gone. Not here. Not like this. Around them, chaos spiraled. The masked men shifted, sensing weakness. "Get down!" one barked, pointing the gun at anyone who dared move. Eyes wide with fear, diners pressed against the floor, whispered igniting like wildfire. "Samuel!" Marcus pulled him down, urgency lacing his voice. "We have to go." But Samuel's gaze remained locked on Ruth. Blood spilled across the restaurant floor, a dark river pooling, spreading fast. The world faded, swirling with the echo of gunfire and gasps. In an instant, he was swallowed by panic. Instinctively, he leaned forward, reaching toward her, feeling the weight of loss press on his chest. "Don't! You can't!" But it was too late. Another voice cut through the noise, calm yet laced with authority. "Step away from her." Samuel turned, breath caught in his throat. A figure stepped out from the shadows. It was a woman, dressed in a sleek black suit, framed by the chaos. She had a cold intensity that made bodies still and breaths hitch. "Who are you?" Samuel croaked, the words barely escaping. "I'm here to help." Her eyes darted to the masked men, calculating. "But first, we need to contain this." Ruth stirred, a weak flutter of movement. Relief coursed through Samuel, but it was met with a fierce wave of protectiveness. "Get back!" he shouted at the masked intruders, blind fury igniting within him. But that calm woman didn't waver, even when one of the masked men turned, narrowing his eyes. "What do you want?" The gun was raised again, but before he could pull the trigger, the woman lunged forward, a blur of motion. Everything exploded in chaos once more. The gunshot rang out, but it wasn't aimed at Ruth. Instead, the second masked man fell, crashing to the ground, the gun slipping from his hands. Time froze for a moment. The air thickened as shock felt like a physical blow. How? Samuel's mind reeled. Then the woman turned back to him, her face softening. "Listen carefully. You need to trust me. Your life is in danger." Danger? The word felt surreal, floating like a feather in the midst of turmoil. "My life? My mother just—" He swallowed, emotions flooding him, the pain choking his words. "Ruth knows more than you think," she replied, urgency rising in her voice. "There are reasons they came for you, secrets buried in her past that will change everything." "No," he blurted, shaking his head as disbelief gripped him. "That can't be true. My mother is— She built this life." The woman shook her head, frustration knotting her brow. "Open your eyes. You've always been part of it, Samuel. You inherited more than wealth. You need to know where the danger lies, not just outside, but inside your family." The truth hung heavily, mingling with denial. In that moment, a sound sliced through the chaos. An ominous creak, the distant sound of tires screeching on asphalt. Without warning, another figure burst through the doors. This one, familiar, one Samuel never expected to see here. His father. "Samuel!" he shouted, breathless, eyes wide with panic. Everything shifted. Time twisted. The realization struck like lightning. His father? The man who had been a ghost in his life, pulled from the shadows. Why was he here? The masked men hesitated, their focus shifting. Samuel's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Alongside the fear was a spark of something else. Hope? Get down, the woman cried again. But Samuel's world spun. This was more than a robbery, more than a threat to his life. It exposed a web of secrets, lies, woven intricately through their family. And just like that, he felt the weight of truth crashing down, heavy and unyielding. His father stood at the edge, and in that split second, everything he thought he knew shattered. "What is happening?" Samuel screamed, desperate for answers, desperate for clarity. But as he locked eyes with the man he had always yearned to understand, a gun clicked behind him, and all fell into silence once more. Life hanging in the balance. Samuel's throat caught, his hands clenched. Outside, the city roared, unaware a new kind of fight had just begun. Are you truly willing to change everything you know for someone like me? Marcus's voice pierced through the noise, but before Samuel could answer, chaos erupted. The restaurant doors slammed open, a screech echoed, and a man burst in, wild-eyed, out of breath, his shirt stained and hair askew. "Help! Someone! Please!" The room froze. The chatter died. Glass goblets trembled on tables. "What's going on?" a diner murmured, confusion flickering in their eyes. The man staggered to the center, heart racing loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's my daughter. She—" he gasped, having trouble finding the words. Panic washed over his face as the whispers grew. Samuel's heart raced too. "What happened?" His voice barely broke through the tension, but the man's eyes caught his. "Kidnapped! They took her!" The words fell like stones, heavy and shattering. Gasps mingled with disbelief. Samuel's stomach churned. The world outside dimmed behind the glass as he took a half-step forward. "Where?" "West Side! They were driving a black van! I saw them!" The man ran a trembling hand through his hair, desperation pouring from his every feature. Without a thought, Marcus turned his body toward Samuel, the moment sparking like electricity. "You've got to do something! You can help!" Samuel's mind raced, torn between worlds. Rich and poor collided, as if the restaurant itself held its breath. The city outside continued its beat, oblivious. In that second, Samuel saw not just the man pleading in anguish, but shadows of his own life flashing around him. The deals his mother had made, the power his money brought, the hollow victory without connection. Then Samuel felt it, the knot in his chest tightening as a realization hit him like a cold wave. I need to do something. With that decision, a movement began to stir within him, and then the unexpected happened. "Samuel!" A voice sliced through the chaos. He turned, and the sight froze him. Ruth, his mother, stood at the entrance, elegance unyielding. But her face twisted with something darker. Anger? Fear? Before he could piece it together, she locked eyes with the desperate man and whispered something just loud enough to hear. "You shouldn't have come here." The words slammed against his heart. With disbelief, Samuel sensed a crack in her polished demeanor. This wasn't just about a daughter. It was deeper, more tangled in their family history than he ever imagined. Those secret deals, those closed doors, it all connected somehow. "Mom, do you know him?" The simple question hung heavy, tension stretching across the room. Ruth's eyes darted, calculations firing behind her placid exterior. "This is none of your concern, Samuel." But even the elegance of her voice faltered. Marco's voice broke through, trembling yet filled with resolve. "You can't just ignore this. Help him." A second of silence followed, thick, unyielding, spiraling into disbelief. "Samie successo tento una baso de familia corriendo a su alrededor. That cimentienza suelta grande entrañas. Vino una borviada con la ciudad, y clase de dos mundos, sí, un tabro cósmico, y Samuel sintió la completa escopia de escoger. Mommy, do you want to fight here a man he barely knew, and against the redemption of his life? They're coming! Stream! A mounting fear shot through the crowd, eyes darting toward the exit. Now Samuel stood at the edge of a precipice, heart pounding. Choices formed around him like a storm. Would he dive into darkness or step back into light? The answer rippled, yet the truth remained buried, aching to be uncovered. Samuel's throat caught, his hands clenched. Outside, the city roared, unaware a new kind of fight had just begun. For a moment, silence enveloped them, heavy but alive. Marcus's gaze pierced through Samuel, searching. Then a loud crash shattered the peace, glass shattering, a scream slashing through the restaurant's delicate ambience. A shadow darted through the doorway like a dark streak, a figure cloaked in desperation. "Get down!" the figure shouted, pulling a shiny object, an intimidating gun, into view. Panic erupted. Diners screamed, chairs toppled. Samuel's chest tightened further. His heart pounded, a primal drum echoing in the sudden chaos. The air thickened with fear and the scent of expensive food gone cold. He turned to Marcus, but Marcus was already moving, instinctively shielding Samuel with his body. "Stay behind me," Marcus shouted. In that split second, Samuel saw clarity in Marcus's eyes, not of a beggar, but a protector. The figure waved the gun, eyes wild, looking for someone he blames, someone exceptional. The crowd lurched away, pressing against the walls, desperate to escape. "Where is he?" the figure cried, voice cracking. "I know you are hiding him." Samuel's heart raced as his mind raced with confusion. The whispers of his surroundings faded, dulling reality. Who were they talking about? Who were they looking for? Then a flash of recognition hit him. The name his mother had whispered late at night. Richard. The name that had haunted him. A ghost in the family tree, connected to secrets buried deep in the dark. Was this man a shadow of that past, breaking into his present? Marcus glared, tension brewing, preparing to defend. "I don't know what you want," he shouted, and yet the figure was relentless. "Liar, I know you're connected." Samuel felt a lump in his throat as he watched Marcus, the defiance raw, yet fragile. Suddenly, he felt an urge, a spiraling chaos giving way to instinct. Years of cold wealth and crystal chandeliers melted away. "If you let us go, I can help you find him," Samuel called out, the words tumbling from his lips in a rush that surprised even him. "I swear." All eyes turned, disbelief mixing with fear. Marcus's gaze snapped to Samuel, shock flickering like a candle struggling against the wind. The figure paused, confusion creeping in through the chaos. You know him?" Samuel swallowed hard. I need to know why you're searching. I need to understand." But what he felt deep down was more than curiosity. It was desperation. The concern for Marcus gnawed at him, intertwining with his self-preservation instinct. The restaurant held its breath. Scarred faces cast uneasy glances, and the loud silence cut through the turmoil like a knife. Would his offer lead to safety or deeper danger? The figure's grip on the gun wavered, rage and uncertainty battling in his eyes. Then, like a pin dropped in a room full of chatter, it slipped from his hand, echoing against the marble floor. "Get out! Get out now!" he screamed. But as he backed away, the truth clawed its way up Samuel's throat. Who was connected to this chaos? His heart hammered as realization struck. What if the connection ran deeper than they thought? The truth could shatter everything. "Wait!" Samuel called out, feeling panic rise and his mind twist. But the man turned, a shadow vanishing into the night, leaving behind a confusion far more dangerous than the gun he'd wielded. Had he just invited a storm into his life, or had he just begun to uncover the threads that tied their fates? The city outside continued to pulse, oblivious, a million stories waiting, and his was just starting to unravel. Samuel's throat caught, his hands clenched. Outside, the city roared, unaware a new kind of fight had just begun. Suddenly, a crash shattered the moment. The sound of glass exploding filled the air as a dark figure burst through the restaurant's grand entrance. Panic rippled like a wave through the crowd. Samuel turned, cart racing, eyes wide. A teenager, no more than 16, stood breathless at the door. He was disheveled, clothes torn and muddy, a gun clutched in his shaking hands. "Everybody down!" he shouted, voice breaking, fear radiating. His eyes darted around the room, wild and desperate. The diners, once sipping wine and enjoying their meals, dropped forks with a clang and shrieked. Marcus tensed beside Samuel, instinctively lunging to shield him. "Stay behind me," he said, heart pounding in his chest. The teen's gaze locked onto Samuel, recognition flashing like a lightning bolt. "You! I know you." The moment hung heavy, like the silence right before a storm. "What?" Samuel barely whispered. His pulse thundered. "Your family. You're the reason my dad's gone." A choking gasp spread through the room, whispers layered like 1,000 whispers of betrayal. Samuel's mind raced. "What are you talking about?" he stammered, confusion gripping him. The kid's breath came out in jagged gasps. "My dad worked for your mother. She ruined him, took everything. You don't know, do you?" The words hit like a punch. The night spun, the restaurant's elegance turning to chaos around him. Samuel's own past clawed at him, memories surfacing. His mother's ruthless business tactics, stories he'd pushed aside as he climbed higher in her shadow. "Stop!" he shouted, the words barely coming out. "This isn't how it should be." Fingers trembling, the boy lifted the gun higher, eyes wild and red. "You think you can just eat and ignore the damage? You think it's nothing? My dad's gone, man. You made him disappear." Marcus's eyes met Samuel's, filled with a mix of fury and fear. "You need to calm him down," he whispered, urgency surging through his voice. "You have to reach him." But Samuel felt a wave of despair. "I didn't." He couldn't finish. The stakes were rising, and the truth twisted like a knife inside him. What had he inherited? What did his mother do in the name of power? Whispers of the patrons swirled around them, ricocheting off marble walls. "What's happening? Is he serious? Why isn't anyone doing anything?" "Just back away," the boy shouted, jabbing his gun towards Samuel, tears in his eyes. "You don't get to keep living your life after what you've done." Time slowed. Samuel saw lives crumbling, futures wrecking in an instant. Fear and anger mingled in his chest. "I'm not my mother," he yelled, desperation shaping his voice. "I want to help." But would anyone believe him? Would he even know how? Suddenly, there was a hush. The group held its breath. Outside, city lights swirled like stars beckoning in a storm. Time hung, a moment suspended in chaos, while the boy struggled, battling loss and fury. And then, a whisper. A second figure appeared at the door, older, with a calm that cut through the air like glass breaking. It was a woman, strong, determined. "Jordan," she spoke softly, voice steady like a heartbeat. "Let's talk." Their eyes locked. Samuel's heart thudded painfully as the boy hesitated. Who was she? What did she have to do with this? In that fractured silence, everything shifted again. And Samuel realized he had stumbled into a deeper war than he could have ever imagined. One that could change everything about who he thought he was. The woman, calm yet intense, took a step closer, her presence grounding the chaos swirling around them. "Jordan, put the gun down," she urged, voice steady but filled with an underlying tension. "This isn't how it needs to be. You're not alone in this." The boy's expression flickered, doubt intruding on his anger. "Why should I trust you?" he spat, gripping the weapon tighter. But there was a trace of uncertainty in his eyes. "Because I can help you find the truth," she said, eyes fierce yet compassionate. "I've been searching for you." "What do you know?" he challenged, but the gun wavered just slightly. Then Samuel's world tilted, everything he thought he knew swaying like a fragile house of cards. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice rising above the tension. Desperate for clarity amid the confusion, air thickened around them. Silence fell like a blanket. Each heartbeat thundered. "I'm Anya," she replied. "Your sister." Shock pulsed through the restaurant. Gasps echoed. Samuel felt the ground shift beneath him, knees almost buckling. "What? That's not possible!" The words barely escaped his lips, grounded in disbelief. The room felt smaller, pressing against him. "I know it sounds insane," Anya continued, stepping closer as Jordan's grip loosened, confusion replacing fury. "But it's the truth. We share the same mother. She hid me away for years. I thought I was safe. But safe from what?" This time it was Marcus who asked, his eyes wide, still shielding Samuel. "From the same thing that's after you, after all of us." Anya's eyes darted, as if shadows lurked just beyond reach. "Your mother's secrets run deep, and they're darker than you can imagine." Samuel's heart raced. Doubt wove its way into the fabric of his thoughts. Years of success built upon obscenity, spun from a mother who seemed untouchable. No, Ruth wouldn't. She would. Anya pressed, voice tight, urgent. Don't you see? She sacrificed everything, even family, to keep her empire intact. Jordan lowered the gun fully now, confusion melding with the resolve in his eyes. So wait, you're saying your mother's behind my dad's disappearance? What does this have to do with me? Everything, Samuel blurted out, realization hitting hard. All those meetings, the desperate exchanges, families broken like glass, scattered across a table. She used people like your dad to build her empire, sacrificing lives without a second thought. Around them, the whispers grew. Is it true? How could she? Murmurs splintered through the crowd. The tension thickening again. Anya's face hardened, urgency pressing down on her words. It's worse than you think. I came here to see if I could uncover what happened, but they know I'm looking. They'd kill me if they find out I'm alive. Samuel's stomach twisted, emotions coiling like a serpent, tightening around his throat. The hidden truths, they're not just about us. This is bigger. Suddenly, gunfire erupted again just outside, deafening and chaotic. Glass shattered. Shouts erupted from the street, mingling with confused cries from the restaurant. The masked figures stormed back, eyes wild and furious, and Anya snapped into focus. They found us! We need to get out! Now! Fear surged, pulse racing. Samuel struggled to process it all, wrestling with his shocking identity. But no time. We don't know what they want, but it won't end well if they get what they're after. Just then, the lights flickered before plunging into darkness. Panic ensued, gasps blending with a high-pitched ring filling the air. It was suffocating, disorienting. In the chaos, someone screamed. Samuel's heart pounded, the dimness swirling around him as he glanced at Marcus. The urgency won him over. We have to follow her! Where do we go? Marcus shouted, eyes darting to the entrances, panic edging in. Follow me! Anya's voice cut through the darkness. She turned, ready to lead them into the unknown. But Samuel hesitated. Could he trust her? But before he could decide, another explosion blasted through the door, a violent shockwave slamming into everyone. Samuel hit the ground, hard, knocked back as the world erupted, and everything went dark. The explosion rocked the restaurant, sending shards of glass cascading like a rain of deadly crystals. Samuel felt himself thrown back, body slamming against a nearby table. Pain shot through his side, but there was no time to dwell on it. The room spun in chaotic disarray. Get up! We've got to move! Anya's voice pierced through the din, urgency lacing her words. Samuel blinked away stars from his vision, pushing against the ground to scramble to his feet. Shadows flickered in the dim light, uncertain and unpredictable. Marcus! He shouted, panic clawing at his heart. Where was he? Here! I'm here! Marcus's voice cut through the confusion. He was crouched near the entrance, eyes wide, adrenaline coursing. What do we do? Anya was tugging at Jordan, pulling him back toward the kitchen doors. We have to go now! Samuel lunged towards them, urgency sparking in his chest. But the shifting shadows held him back. Wait! He stopped, fear knotting his stomach. We need a plan! Another explosion echoed outside, smoke curling in through the shattered doorway. Thick and choking, the chaos seemed endless. He could feel the walls vibrating with a life of their own, threatening to swallow them whole. Samuel! Now! Anya shouted, eyes blazing. There was no choice. He sprinted forward, following Anya and Marcus into the kitchen, dimly lit and filled with the stench of fear. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance. They needed to escape before the world outside swallowed them. But just as they dove through the kitchen door, a figure stepped out of the shadows, blocking their path. Samuel's heart sank. It was another masked man, gun raised, menacing and ready. "Not so fast," he growled. Eyes narrowed, the tension pulled tight, snapping at their throats. "Wait! We're not your enemies!" Samuel blurted, instinctively stepping forward. "Please." But the man didn't lower his gun. Just as the atmosphere thickened with dread, another voice echoed from behind him, cold and commanding. "Let them go." Every head turned, and there, gliding into the chaos like a phantom, was Ruth. Flanked by her own men, she wore a mask of authority, collected like nothing had happened. "What?" Samuel's voice trembled, confusion stealing his breath. "Mom?" "Samuel, stay back," Ruth ordered. Eyes rang with chilling authority. There was a fire in her gaze he had never seen. "Do as she says, boy," the masked man murmured. His grip wavered, but held strong. "Mom, they're coming for us," Samuel exclaimed, trying to grasp the madness unfolding. "You have to help!" Her expression hardened further. "I didn't want you involved. You have to understand. Things are worse than they seem." "Worse?" Jordan's voice cracked as we edged behind Samuel. "You don't understand what's happening. People are dying because of your lies." "Silence!" Ruth snapped, her voice slicing the air. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Then the revelation hit, clear and shattering. The betrayal tasted bitter, a darkness curling in his gut. "You set this up!" It was a desperate accusation, but it felt right. Ruth's face didn't flinch as she looked at Samuel, her gaze unwavering. "There are greater threats than we've let on. I thought I was keeping you safe." Before Samuel could process it, Anya stepped forward, voice trembling yet assertive. "You hid me to protect your own power, didn't you?" Ruth stared at her, emotion flashing for a brief moment before cold steel replaced it. "You don't understand what I sacrificed. Everything demanded a price." With that, the masked man took a shaky step back, uncertainty creeping into his expression. Samuel seized the moment, shouting, "No, you can't keep us from the truth." In an instant, Ruth's hand darted toward her coat. "You need to trust me." But then the room erupted in chaos again. A loud crash from outside, a shattering like thunder, caused everyone to flinch. "Take cover!" the masked man yelled, panic rising. But the truth hung heavy in the air. As the adrenaline buzzed through his bones, Samuel realized the truth was darker than he imagined, and he began to question everything he thought he had known. A spark ignited in the corner of his eye as the figure of one of Ruth's men flickered into view. "What's the order, ma'am?" Ruth opened her mouth as sirens drew closer, and all at once the world splintered. A warning tremored through Samuel. This was a war on many fronts, and his mother had never been just a businesswoman. In those shadowy depths, he wondered how much of his own bloodline had been bathed in betrayal, and who would be lost when the truth finally broke free. Samuel stood frozen, the weight of the moment crashing over him. The chaos surrounded them like a storm, screams echoing as the blast from outside reverberated through the restaurant. Ruth's face remained a mask of cold determination, and he felt anger boiling up inside him. "Mom, stop!" He stepped forward, desperation clawing at him. "You can't keep lying! People are suffering because of you!" Ruth's expression didn't shift, but Samuel saw something flicker. Fear? Guilt? It slipped away too quickly to grasp. "Get out!" she commanded, urgency edging her voice. "All of you, now!" "Not until you tell us the truth!" he shouted back, heartbeat racing. Each word felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. "Are we really family? What have you done?" Anya stood firm beside Samuel, voice steady but fierce. "You can't just abandon us. There's a reason we're all here, and you know it." The masked man wavered between loyalty to Ruth and the brewing chaos. Tension thickened in the air. "It's not worth it. We need to leave." Before anyone could move, the door burst open again. A figure charged in, shouting, frantic. It was the wild-eyed man from before, still desperate, still running from ghosts. "They're coming! You have to hide!" "Who?" Jordan's voice trembled, gun still loosely gripped. "Who's coming?" "Don't you understand?" the man cried, looking at Ruth. "You're being hunted. This isn't just about us anymore." The truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Samuel felt the walls closing in. "Mom, is it true? Who are we really running from?" Ruth's expression flickered, shadows crossing her face. "You don't know what they're capable of. What I've done to protect you." Samuel felt his heart sink. Everything was crumbling. The legacy, the illusion of safety. But at what cost? The wild-eyed man pointed out the door. "They're organizing. They know you're here. We don't have much time. Follow me." Anya took charge, determination radiating as she stepped towards the kitchen's back exit. "We can find a way out." Marcus looked at Samuel, eyes filled with uncertainty. "Are you sure?" Samuel nodded, resolve solidifying. "We can't let fear rule us any longer." Ruth's eyes narrowed, and for a fleeting moment, Samuel saw the woman he admired, the fighter, the survivor. But in that moment of uncertainty, he realized she was also the architect of his fears. "Samuel," Ruth's voice softened, almost pleading, "let me protect you." "Protect us?" he shot back. "By lying? By hiding the truth?" Jordan stepped forward, voice resolute. "We don't need protection built on lies anymore." They moved towards the kitchen, fear still clinging to their skins. Samuel stole one last glance back at Ruth. There was a moment of connection, a flicker of understanding, but it faded quickly, replaced by the urgency of their escape. Anya led the group through the kitchen, the frantic noise of the restaurant fading behind them. Lost in a swell of uncertainty, emerging outside into the alley, Samuel's heart raced. He realized they were stepping into a new world, shrouded in danger, yes, but also potential clarity. As they hurried into the darkness of the unknown, a single thought ignited within him. What lay ahead could either be their salvation or their downfall. That fear nestled in their chests would be important, and the fight for the truth had only just begun. So what comes next? Samuel could only wonder. The city awaited, and the shadows were slowly beginning to reveal their secrets. Now, this is the moment to show your support. If you loved this journey, subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What do you think will happen next? And don't wait even a second longer to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.